We know who's starting game 1 and 2 for the Dodgers. We don't know who's starting game 3. Who should it be? We'll talk about that. Bill Plaschke is back in making headlines. He's picking the Dodgers to win the World Series in 2023. Here's why it feels a little different when he says it rather than when we say it. And we'll talk about last final roster spots, who's going to be on it, and will Kolten Wong somehow make an appearance? That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And to become one of those valid and very great everydayers, all you have to do is listen every day because we're here for you. Like I said, every Monday through Friday, there'll be an episode for you to listen to or watch. And if you get in on that, you're an everydayer. So we'll appreciate you. If this is your first time listening, watching, I'm Vince Samperio. That's the co-host of mine, Jeff Snider. And we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have watched a lot of Dodger games in our life. Beyond just watching the games, we've also covered the team in the past. We've been in the press box, been in the locker room, been at Camelback Ranch. We're not quite insiders, but we're here to bring you some rational and knowledgeable takes, although those rational takes might only last one more day for me. But either way, we're going to be knowledgeable, if not rational, here on this podcast. And that's what we're here to do today because we're talking about the NLDS. Dodgers playing the Diamondbacks starts Saturday at 6:20 p.m. Jeff and I will both be in the building for game 1, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's been too long since I've been to a Dodger game. It's been so long that my iPhone had offloaded the ballpark app. That's how long it's been. So, but it's been re-onloaded, and I am ready to go. Friday afternoon when I'm done working, I'm hopping in the car and driving down to California. Can't wait. And I've missed Dodger Stadium. I hope it's missed me. And hopefully we can watch Clayton Kershaw spin a postseason gem.
Yeah, exactly. We know who's pitching game 1, Clayton Kershaw. We now officially know who's pitching game 2, Bobby Miller. What we don't know is who's pitching game 3. Dave Roberts essentially said it's all hands on deck for game 1 and 2, and then we'll figure out game 3 when we get there, going for the wins in game 1 and 2. It would appear that Lance Lynn lines up for game 3. He pitched in a sim game on Thursday and would be ready to go the next one. Of all the pitchers on the team, he's the one that hasn't, or at least the pitchers that can also start. He's the one that hasn't come in out of a relief role, at least for the Dodgers specifically this year. I'm sure he's come out of a relief role at some point in his career. But it seems like everyone's available for game 1 and 2. If they don't use Pepio or Sheehan or, maybe Michael Grover, someone like that, then maybe they can get a start in game 3. But it appears that Lance Lynn might be the guy, only because they're going to throw everyone else where they see fit in the first 2 games.
Yeah, Lance Lynn hasn't pitched in relief since 2018. It does make sense knowing that the D-backs are going with Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen in the first 2 games, probably Brandon Pfaadt in the 3rd game. If we go on the premise that Brandon Pfaadt is the worst of those 3, then it makes sense to have Joe Kelly pitch that game because Joe Kelly is probably worse than Lance Lynn. One of those guys they got from the White Sox.
Wrong former Cardinal.
Yeah. It makes sense for Lance Lynn because he's the worst of between him and Clayton Kershaw and Bobby Miller. I guess if he's going to be on the roster, that makes sense. Or it also wouldn't surprise me though, if they decide, knowing that it's Clayton Kershaw going game 1, they may want to use 4 starters if it goes to a 4th game. And so maybe they hold off on Lance Lynn for game 4 and go with Ryan Pepio in game 3, or they could also go with Lance Lynn in game 3, hoping not to get, if they're up 2-0, go with Lance Lynn and, see if they can get through without using Pepio, because then they can use Pepio earlier in the next round if they wanted to. I think quality-wise, I think it would be hard to make a case that Lance Lynn deserves to start over Ryan Pepio. But Pepio has come out of the bullpen. So, and Pepio might pitch in relief in one of the first 2 games. Hopefully they won't need him. Hopefully Bobby Miller is going to go 6 or even 7. Hopefully Kershaw can give 5 solid, and they won't, even though all hands are on deck, not necessarily are all hands going to have to grab a mop and scrub the deck or whatever hands do when they're on a deck,
Yeah. And, as we learned there in the last few starts for Lance Lynn, they basically told him, like, we'll let it eat. And you're only going to go 5 innings at the most. So do whatever you can. And it was not like, oh my God, lights out Lance Lynn those last few starts, but he was solid enough.
Some strikeouts at least.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part is just, how much stock you put into being there before. Lance Lynn has been there before. Obviously, it's a difference between a older Lance Lynn being there before and the Lance Lynn that was good back in the day when he used to be there frequently, and Ryan Pepio, who hasn't been there before. But at this point, the Dodgers aren't going to get where they need to get to without their rookies doing something. So, it kind of goes to itself in that end. But it just also just depends what Kershaw does game 1. If he can give them 5 and they're winning and they can, use their bullpen, then they have a day off. Then they go to game 2. Bobby Miller gives them some length. The days off also help for the bullpen, obviously, because they don't need to have guys going 3 out of 4 days, back-to-back days, anything like that until game 3 and 4. So they can move stuff around. So, but I feel like hopefully they're just up 2-0. Lance Lynn gets a start. He can get 5 innings, a couple runs allowed, and then they can finish out the game with the bullpen.
Yeah, that's the plan, and they do have a very good bullpen between the big 5 relievers. It will be interesting to see who ends up being on the roster. Dave Roberts said they're probably going with 13 pitchers in this round, but they're open to the idea of going with only 12 pitchers in future rounds, depending on the matchup. I would assume that specifically saying if we're playing the Braves, we don't need these lefty relievers, but yeah, seeing who's on the roster, because the big 5 relievers plus all these starters who are available to come out of the bullpen, they should have no problem get plenty of innings and still having plenty of arms available for game 3. But like we say every time, and we're going to keep saying it every time, if the offense shows up, it doesn't really matter who pitches. The Dodgers are a better team than the D-backs. That did hurt the feelings of some D-backs fans in our YouTube mentions on yesterday's episode, claiming the Dodgers were better. They finished 16 games ahead of the D-backs. They won 8 out of 13 games head-to-head this year. The Dodgers are the better team, and we always point out that doesn't actually matter very much sometimes. But if both teams play their best, the Dodgers win this series in 3 or 4 games. You're muted.
Didn't know it was a hot take that the Dodgers had a better team than the Diamondbacks. And the simple fact that we always say it doesn't matter, and that we're still scared and we're still worried about, exactly what's going to happen in this series. So.
Yeah, I'm just nervous about the guy on our YouTube comments who keeps saying that Dave Roberts is going to wreck the team with his garbage analytics. Like, I'm worried about when that, like, Dave Roberts is really playing the long game here. He's like, all right, first 8 years, I'm just going to be the best manager in MLB history. I'm going to take the team to 3 World Series, going to win one of them. But then I unleash my garbage analytics and I will wreck this team. So, keep your eyes out, guys. Dave Roberts, you never know when he's going to pull the heel turn, come out with a steel chair and just hit you over the head.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that some of his past misfortunes have come from not going with analytics.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, most of his, like 2019, he cost the Dodgers a series because he didn't go with analytics. Like, but you know what? That's okay. The guy who's really upset about Dave Robertson's garbage analytics, we appreciate the views on YouTube and the engagement because it's all good for the algorithm, buddy.
Yes, and that commenter is not Bill Plaschke. Bill Plaschke is someone that we're going to talk about next because he has declared the Dodgers is going to win the World Series in 2023. We believe that. I mean, you as personally as fans, but it's a little bit different when Plaschke says it. We'll talk about why. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. It's football season, so that means pizza, wings, things of that nature. Maybe some chicken, buffalo chicken dip. That seems to be a hot commodity these days. Whatever you prefer at your tailgate or at your home tailgate, go all out and get cash back on every purchase with Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $100 per year. That's about the cost of what game one tickets for the NLDS for the Dodgers are going. So you could go to a Dodger game with all the money you earn using Ibotta. So go check it out right now. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Download the Ibotta app now and use code MLB to start earning real cash back. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code MLB. If you are an everydayer, that means you listen and watch every day. We appreciate you. If you are not an everydayer, how you can become one is finding us wherever you're podcasting on YouTube and listening or watching every day. And if you want to make it even easier on yourself, start your day. First listen of the day should be Locked On Dodgers. Wake up if you're on your way to work, or if you work from home, or if you're getting ready for work or school or whatever you're doing. Just throw on Locked On Dodgers and listen to us, especially now as the playoffs are moving forward. Hopefully, we're going to have a whole month to talk about stuff. And remember, SiriusXM or the SXM app can help you out. If you can't watch any of the games, you can listen to the home broadcasts for the Dodger games if you search Dodgers in SiriusXM or the SXM app. All right, Jeff. So Bill Plaschke, who we haven't talked about in a while, has kind of been not in the Dodgers' radar, is back. And he's back with a hot take or a hot take that, at least in the sense of most people predicting these series right now, that the Dodgers are going to win the 2023 World Series. He said that, a variety of factors play into that. He compared some of this team to the 1988 Stuntmen, because, some of the, not obviously not Mookie and Freddie Freeman, but the rest of the guys that kind of fill in. He mentioned Miguel Rojas' defense and Jason Hayward's leadership, and, JD Martinez being able to hit, and, the young guys hopefully been able to pitch their way into it. But, it's Bill Plaschke, and he's, much maligned on social media by a lot of Dodger fans. And now Bob Nightingale already took out the Brewers with the Bob Nightingale curse. Are the Dodgers next with the Bill Plaschke curse?
I don't know if Plaschke has a curse. I think Plaschke, it feels pretty calculated what he did. This way, if the Dodgers win, he gets to say, I called it. If they lose, he gets to say, everything was set up perfectly. How did you screw this up? Probably the last time we talked about him was almost a year ago when he pulled his crybaby rant after the Dodgers lost to the Padres about how embarrassed they should be and blah, 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 blah. And Mookie Betts should be embarrassed. Like they had a bad series, like it happens. And, so yeah, hopefully the bad series doesn't happen this year, but this is a no lose proposition for Plaschke, because if they win, he's a genius. If they lose, he can blame Mookie Betts or Dave Roberts or whoever he decides to blame. And so it gets clicks. You and I both don't read much Plaschke, but we both read this article so that we could talk about it on the podcast. So I guess his mission has already been accomplished. And if they do win the World Series, you know what? It's worth it to me. I don't mind Bill Plaschke being right if it means I get to go to a parade in LA.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's what we talked about right before is, if the Dodgers do win it, I won't care in the moment. And then probably after, I'm already like, damn, back in my mind, Bill Plaschke was right. And he gets to have a little victory lap. But like I said, I won't care because we get to have a victory lap as Dodger fans by the Dodgers winning the World Series. And, going about it the way it happened and everything else. And obviously it would be probably an incredible run if all that occurred. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I guess on that front, I've seen a lot of the predictions out there, and World Series wise specifically, I think it was ESPN or one of the big publications, like 22 of their people picked the Braves. One person picked the Dodgers. One person picked another team. Like they had one, everyone else got one vote only for winning the World Series, or maybe Astros got a few. It does feel different as Dodger fans going into it being like they're not the underdogs in the NLDS, but even then, like some Dodger fans are taking this entire season as like a free house money because they didn't expect the Dodgers to be this good. Or, we're not like that because we expect the Dodgers to be where they're at right now. But does it feel different for you this postseason at all, just based on everything that happened this year and kind of how even if the Dodgers do advance past the Diamondbacks, they're likely going to be even against the Phillies, they might be underdogs in that series in terms of like the public opinion.
Yeah, I definitely on Wednesday evening was out at the high school, had the parents meeting for my son's wrestling team. On the way home, got in the car, my Sirius XM radio was on MLB Network, and whichever talking head was talking out of his head did say he was talking about how unfair, basically the same topic we had yesterday about how it's unfair that they don't reseed. But what he said was, now the Braves have to play the second best team in baseball in the NLDS. And he even said, like, I'm like, did he forget the Dodgers exist? And he's like, no offense to the Dodgers or the Orioles or whoever, but the Phillies are the second best team in baseball. And I mean, obviously that's stupid. Like, they played 162 games, and the Dodgers ended up with a significantly better record than the Phillies. The Dodgers scored more runs than this great Phillies offense. The Dodgers pitching is like, so anyway, but we don't need to have that conversation. But yeah, the Dodgers will be underdogs, definitely if they play the Braves. And like you said, in some people's minds, even if it's the Phillies they play. And I find that kind of refreshing. I'm going to be very sad if the Dodgers get eliminated, no matter what. But I do think there will be same amount of sadness, but less anger or frustration or whatever. Like I try not to let baseball make me angry. Ever since I threw a water bottle when Hong Chi Kuo gave up a base hit to Ryan Howard, and then Jonathan Broxton gave up a home run to Matt Stairs. I threw a water bottle and against the wall, and I said, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so ever since then, so it's been what, 15 years now.
How dare you, Jeff? How dare you?
I try not to actually get angry about baseball because it doesn't matter really. I say baseball is the most important, unimportant thing in the world. But I do, like last year, it was when the Dodgers lost to a clearly inferior Padres team. It was like, there was something that felt, it wasn't just sadness. And it wasn't embarrassment. I don't believe in getting embarrassed by the things that grown men I don't know do. But there was some feeling besides just sadness. This year, if the Dodgers get eliminated, which I don't think they're going to, but if they do, I think it will just be sadness. There won't be those other emotions. And I guess I'm kind of looking forward to that, or not looking forward to it. I don't want to feel sad. I don't think they're going to lose. But if they do, I will be glad that it's just sadness that I'm feeling. Does that make any sense?
In a roundabout way, you made it make sense. And that I think that's how it is because to me, it feels like 2018. Like 2018, I knew the Dodgers were going to make the World Series. Like that was probably the most confident I ever was that the Dodgers were going to make it. We got really close in that Brewers. Yeah. Like the Brewers series was a lot closer than I expected it to be. But I knew 2018, once they made the World Series, whoever
the Red Sox were the better team.
Yeah. Well, even before that, whoever was coming out of the AL was probably going to be a better team than the Dodgers. Like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Astros, like one of those teams was going to be on paper better than the Dodgers, or at least played better than the Dodgers that season, because the Dodgers had a weird 2018. And that's kind of how this one feels right now, where it's like, okay, and then the Dodgers gave me hope when Puig hit that homer, and I was like, okay, now it's going to be 2-2, best 2 out of 3. You never know what's going to happen. And then, Ryan Matz and everybody else kind of got rid of that hope. But yeah, I think that it kind of feels that way. It feels different. And I think now it's one of those where so many people, or not so many people, but there's enough people like, oh, this team's different, and they have the leadership and blah 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 and all this other stuff. And now it's like, okay, well now if they lose, I'm going to be upset again because
everyone's building it back up. Train a little bit.
Yeah, everyone's building building it back up to where it was, and it's just like, let's just let it play out. I'm gonna feel, like I said, I'm gonna feel upset regardless. I think last year was disappointment. Just like I was annoyed that the Dodgers lost. Just like, man, like really. But I think this year, obviously, depends how it goes because if they're up in like 4 out of 7 games in a CS and then they end up losing, like bullpen or whatever ends up happening, like I'm going to be mad at that point because of how they lost. But yeah, I do think it feels a little bit different this year. But again, it's still, they had 100 wins. They were the third best record in baseball. Like they're not here. They might be treated like underdogs, but they're not here just because punch and Judy's. They're here because they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, scored the second most runs in baseball this year.
Yeah.
One thing about Plaschke's article that bugged me, he said they haven't won a full season world championship in 35 years. We had somebody in our YouTube comments yesterday, same thing. They need to win a full season championship. And Dodger fan, like that is an anti-Dodger talking point that Dodger fans need to stop repeating, because the fact is in 2020, the Dodgers are still the only team in history to have to win 13 postseason games in one season to win a World Series. It was, the season was short, but the postseason was the longest and most grueling they've ever had. The Dodgers dominated in the regular season. It's not like the Dodgers they only snuck into the play. They're not the Marlins who snuck into the playoffs because of the short season.
Astros.
The Astros they had a losing record, snuck into the
stupid Angels.
Yeah. The Dodgers were going to make the postseason, whether the game was, or season was 60 games long or 600 games long. And then they dominated, and they won 13 games in the postseason. That was as legitimate as they come. Maybe the most legitimate
and they came back from 3-1. Like, it's not like they swept every series.
And not a single home game after the wild card series. Like they were living in a hotel, in a bubble, like so many things. Like I understand why people who hate the Dodgers feel the need to be intellectually dishonest and discredit that World Series. But Bill Plaschke, get a brain, dude. And like, if you're a Dodger fan and you're repeating those talking points, you need to accept the fact that World Series title was legit. And there's nothing tainted about that World Series title. And I will go to my grave standing on that hill. That's weird. I'm going to die on the hill, and I guess they'll just bury me on the hill, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to roster talk. That's what's coming up next. The Diamondbacks have a lot of right-handed pitching. Is that going to affect who is on the roster for the Dodgers? We'll talk about that. So that's what's coming up. So let's keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap in action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets. Basically, free money to put some wagers down, win or lose with just a $5 bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. There's a game last night, the Bears and the Commanders. And if you had put some money on DJ Moore scoring 3 touchdowns, you probably would have won a lot of money, because this prop was probably 0.5 or 1.5 in terms of touchdowns. If you would have put the over under to be over 60, or 60 points was the final tally, if you would have put the over under, I'm sure they hit the over on that one, you would have won some money. So there's a lot of ways to do it. Go check it out right now. They got spreads, player props, over unders, all that. You can put some same game parlays together. You can find different ways to win. There's a lot of betting sites or betting social media accounts that show the big wins. You could be one of those big wins. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to listen to the Dodger game because you can't watch, or if you just want to listen, SiriusXM or the SXM app can help you out there. All you got to do is search Dodgers, and you can get the home broadcast for any of the games coming up. All right, Jeff. So the Diamondbacks only have 2 left-handers on their active roster. They only have 4 left-handers on their 40-man roster in general. One of them is Joe Mantiply, who was an all-star last year. The other one is Andrew Salfrank, or I don't know exactly how to say it, who's pitched in 10 games this year. So not and did okay in terms of peripherals. He had a 0 ERA. He did allow 2 runs. But with all the right-handers on there, Kolten Wong, Michael Busch, guys that hit left-handed, do they have a chance of making this roster over guys like Kike or Ahmed Rosario?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because, Joe Mantiply, really, he's really the only one there that you need to think about. And the fact is he is very, very tough on lefties for his career, and especially the last 2 years. Actually, in 2020 and 2021, he wasn't actually very good against lefties, but he's been very good the last 2 years against lefties. But if you think about, you're going to want to have somebody on the bench, a righty on the bench, but I don't know that you're going to want like Ahmed Rosario, who only hits lefties. He's very fast, but Kolten Wong, I assume Kolten Wong's still fast. I actually haven't looked at his sprint speed, but I know he used to be fast. Rosario, do you really want to carry a guy just to be a pinch runner? You can, if you have, in a game started by a righty, either Chris Taylor or Kike Hernandez is probably on the bench to start the game, maybe even both of them. And so I don't know that you need those two and Ahmed Rosario. And maybe you don't even need two of those guys. Maybe it is one of those three in this series, and you go with Kolten Wong and Michael Busch instead. Like having those lefties, because most of the reliever, what's his name? Kevin Ginkel is very tough right-handed pitcher. I hadn't looked at his splits actually, but I assume he's tougher on righties. And having more lefty bats on the bench might be something that makes sense for this series, especially knowing that you can change the roster when you get to the NLCS. But for now, yeah, I think they might want to stack the lefties.
Yeah, I realistically don't see a chance for Bush to be on the roster just because it would be so weird for the way they kind of handled him throughout the season for him to all of a sudden be on the roster. I do think Ahmed Rosario is not going to be on this roster, and I do think Kolten Wong is, just for the specific fact of the Diamondbacks have all those right-handed pitchers, and Rosario, even if it was lefties, he didn't hit particularly well enough after that first week or so to even justify it. When you look at it, it comes down to there's 11 for sure. It's Barnes, Smith, Freeman, Muncy, Rojas, Taylor, Betts, Hayward, Outman, Peralta, Martinez. So that's 11. If you go with the 13, then you're looking at, 2 spots for Kolten Wong, Rosario, Kike, Michael Busch. And that's pretty much it. So between those 4, and you kind of need a middle infielder, and that you don't need one, but you'd rather have one. So I say Kike and I say Kolten Wong are on this roster.
Yeah, I did just look it up. Kolten Wong is not fast. And so that's, maybe an argument against him. But yeah, he's 35th percentile in sprint speed this year. I'm just going to go back to as far back as we go.
Maybe he didn't hit enough to be on the bases enough.
He was 66th percentile back in 2015. So, maybe they were nagging injuries or something. That's why he was so bad. But anyway, he's definitely not Ahmed Rosario speed, but I don't know that the Dodgers, JD Martinez is definitely somebody you're going to want to pinch run for late in game. But Chris Taylor, if he's on the bench, he's fast. How come Kike is not faster? Like,
got little legs. I don't know.
Yeah, like he's a great athlete. He's in very good shape. He's not heavy. Like everything about Kike screams, this guy's fast, except for the way he runs, which is not fast.
Sometimes you just don't get the genes.
Yeah, I can relate to that, but I don't look like Kike. So
yeah, true.
There's the understatement of the year, huh?
When you put that on a quote card, I don't look like Kike, Jeff Snider.
Did you do the hot Dodger bracket, Vince?
I did not. I was out all weekend. I gotta get on it before Saturday.
Yeah. So
actually, on that front, Kike, I don't know where he's at in the bracket, but Kike, I think if you involve all around personality, he might make it farther than some people on other people's brackets.
Kike is the only current member of the Dodgers roster who has ever won the bracket for me in the past, but he didn't even make the Final Four for me this year. Yeah, James Outman was my pretty easy winner. I think my Final Four was Outman, Mookie, Peralta, and Hayward. So,
yeah, after that bracket coming out after they did the costumes, probably bumped up Outman and Hayward. I mean, they're probably already up there for most people. Might have bumped them up a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Outman. We're big fans of James Outman in our house. So my wife hasn't done it yet. I'm interested to see who wins hers because she has really weird taste in men. You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you can see that.
All right, so this is the last episode of this week, and the last episode before the first Dodger playoff game. So here we go. October is upon us. Let's pray for big hits and strikeouts from the pitching staff, and some big wins,
Yeah,
or
offense.
at least one big one.
You know, pray for neutral luck. That's what we used to say. And I think in this series, if we just get neutral luck, Dodgers win the series. So,
all right, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. You can find us where we found podcasts and on YouTube, and you can become an everydayer by listening every day. We'll be back on Monday to talk about Game 1 of the NLDS and any other information we get for Game 2 ahead of Game 2. So make sure to be ready for that. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vincent's91. You can DM either of us if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. If you DM, I don't know about Jeff, but if you DM me during a playoff game and I don't reply, don't feel offended. But that's, I'm probably not checking my DMs at that time.
yep.
I might be tweeting, but that doesn't mean I'm checking my DMs during the game. So don't feel offended. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail, send us a text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device to podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you on Monday.